지금 분단 상황이 어떠냐, 어떤 단계에 있느냐고 생각하면은 독일도 어떤 단계까지 왔느냐, 그렇게 생각할 수가 있습니다. 최근 몇 년도간이 한국의 분단 상황이 많이 변하고 있다고 그렇게 보입니다. 최근 몇 년도간이 뭐 2, 3년 동안 이야기인데, 그 몇 가지 이유가 있는데, 하나는 북한의 핵 개발이 어느 정도 단계까지 벌써 와버렸다는 이야기죠. 지금까지는 플루토늄 이야기를 해왔습니다만, 이제는 우란 논칙 이야기를 해야 하는 단계까지 왔고, 잘 아시다시피 미국의 핵과 교수는 덕터 핵과는 연변에서 그 최신 우란 논칙 시설을 보고 왔습니다. 그런 단계까지 와 있어서 그것을 막을 수가 아주 어렵고, 북한의 핵을 포기하라고 해도 사실상 불가능하다는 거 다 알고 있는 사실입니다. 이게 하나의 변화이고, 두 번째 변화는 중국의 대국화라고 생각합니다. 몇 년도간에 특히 리만 브라더 쇼크 이후 중국 경제가 아주 크게 되었다는 거 알고 있고, 이제는 일본보다 중국의 GNP가 고진 그런 상황까지 와 있습니다. 중국의 대국화는 한반도의 분단에 어떤 영향을 미치는가, 그것을 항상 생각해야 하는 것 같습니다. 나는 학교에서 강의를 하는데, 학생들한테 가끔 이런 질문이 나옵니다. 왜 한국의 완조란 게 이렇게 기느냐? 중국에서 100년, 20년에서 완조가 교체하는데, 한국 조선 완조는 500년 이상이 계속되었다. 이게 왜 그러냐? 그런 질문입니다. 그런데 그것을 설명하기 위해서는 역시 중국과 한국의 관계 언급하지 안 하고는 그것을 설명하기가 힘듭니다. 중국 완조가 아주 강하고 한국하고 조화적인 관계를 맺고 있는 때, 그런 때는 한국에서 완조 교체라는 게 있을 수가 없습니다. 무슨 이야기를 하려고 하는지 알게 되었죠. 중국이 그렇게 강하게 되어 있다는 것이 북한에 대해서는 플러스인지 마이너스인지 생각하면, 북한에 지금 있는 정권이 계속하기에는 아주 플러스 효과가 가는 것이죠. 그것은 바로 한반도 분단이라는 게 계속된다는 얘기가 되겠습니다. 북한 정권이 완조처럼 계속되면은 남북 간의 독일하기가 아주 어렵다, 그렇게 생각할 수가 있습니다. 세 번째 변화는 말할 필요가 없습니다만, 그것은 북한의 최고 지도자 리더의 교체, 즉 김정일의 근간 상태가 문제입니다. 단장 어떻다는 거 아니라, 이번에 그 사람이 중국에 가서 6,000km 여행해온 것 보면은 지금 괜찮다고 생각하지만, 그래도 몇 년 사이에 어떻게 될지 모르고 그 후계자가 나야 한다. 그것이 김정일의 사고방식에 어떤 영향을 주는가, 그것을 생각해야죠. 빨리 준비를 해야 한다. 그 사람은 그렇게 해서 몇 년 동안 역시 계속 후계 작업을 하고 있다, 그렇게 볼 수가 있습니다. 이런 관점으로서 독일 문제를 생각하면은 이번에 김정일의 세 번째 중국 방문은 목적은 무엇이고, 그것이 어떤 뜻을 가지고 있는가? 나는 이번에 새로운 조선 북한과 중국의 관계가 새로 성립되었다. 한국 신문 보면은 여러 가지 문제가 많은 것처럼 보도되어 있습니다만 사실은 그 신파샤 뉴 차이나 뉴스 에이전시의 보도를 보면은 양국 리더는 잘 올리고 새로운 관계가 성사되었다. 그렇게 보아야 하는 것 같습니다. 어떻게 보면은 몇 년 동안 북한에서 노력해온 외교, 북한 외교가 성공한 것입니다. 즉 핵을 포기하지 않는데 그래도 육자회담 재개를 주장할 수 있는 남북 대화도 주장할 수 있는 그런 상황까지 와 있다는 것을 인정해야 하는 것 같습니다. 그래서 아마 장기 앞으로 흑의 문제가 어떻게 될지는 모르나 그러나 그것을 포함해서 몇십 년 동안 가도기에 중국과 조선의 북조선의 관계의 기조가 이번에 나왔다. 그렇게도 볼 수 있지 않을까. 물론 조금 좀 더 감찰을 해야 하지만 그러나 일단 그런 것도 생각할 수 있다고 나는 생각합니다. 그래서 마지막에 한반도 독일 문제에 대해서 그것을 어떻게 생각하는가에 대해서도 말씀드려야 하는데 이런 상황을 보면은 한반도 독일이 체제 독일을 뜻한다면은 그것이 가까운 장래에 온다고는 생각하기 힘듭니다. 두 개 나라가 분단되는 상황이 좀 더 계속되지 않을까 생각합니다. 그러면 어떻게 하면 되는가? 단면 우리가 목표하는 것은 체제 독일을 말고 그것보다는 북한 경제를 어떻게 개방시키는가 그 문제라고 생각합니다. 특히 이번에 중국과 북한에는 아마 장기적인 경제 관계에 대해서도 여러 가지 협조가 있었을 겁니다. 합의가 있었을 겁니다. 그래서 중국도 북한 경제를 시장 경제적으로 수정하는 게 많은 노력을 할 것 같고 그것을 우리가 남한이나 일본이나 다른 나라가 어떻게 이용하는가 새로 생긴 중국과 북한 관계를 부정할 수는 없습니다. 그것을 어떻게 이용하는가 그것을 생각해야 하는 것 같습니다. 그리고 그 다음에 북한의 경제 개방을 통해서 그리고 나서 남북 간의 경제 협력을 하면서 북한 체제를 어떻게 변화시키는가, 트랜스폼 하는가 그런 이야기인 것 같습니다. 거기까지 가면은 남북 간이 전체적으로 서로가 인정할 수 있는 조건이 마련되지 않을까 생각합니다. 하여튼 남북 독일이라는 게 남한과 북한에서 하는 것이지 아까 아파나체프 선생님도 대사도 하셨지만 삼반이 하려면 아무도 반대 못합니다. 그래서 우리한테 필요한 건 그런 조건을 어떻게 마련하는가, 북한의 체제를 어떻게 바꾸기 시작하는가, 그 문제인 것 같습니다. 누가 토프 리더 되는가는 그런 관점으로서는 그렇게 큰 문제가 아니라 그렇게 생각합니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you so much, Dr. Okonogi. And is there anything you would like to add? Okay.
It's an amazing experience to see panelists who all agree on how we should proceed with North Korea. I was expecting a more controversial discussion. But I totally agree to what Professor Okonogi Okonagi just mentioned, that economy could be a key to solve to overcome the stalemate between South Korea and North Korea, to reopen a dialogue between two countries, and South Korea should take over the lead. What I forgot to mention, we also have to discuss the issue of sanctions. I know that this is politically a very complicated thing. I know the intention of sanctions. It will be very complicated to convince our people that sanctions don't help in this situation, because when I was in Pyongyang, and I'm in Pyongyang more or less every other month, you should simply see the traffic in Pyongyang. You see all luxury goods. You see big Chinese cars, you see big Japanese cars, big German cars, you see high-tech products from Japan, from China. So obviously sanctions don't work and they are not implemented, they are not executed. On the other hand, you see an increase of foreign direct investment from China. And this is an issue which has to be discussed in South Korea, because this has an immediate impact on the South Korean-North Korean relationship. That's why I'm really proposing to consider how to improve the economic situation and to find new ways, new routes of communication.
Professor Lee?
I think the comments made by previous speakers about North Korea-China relations are very important because, as I said, there are two approaches in terms of reunification. One is unification and the other is integration. And at the moment it seems that North Korea has more closer relationship with China rather than South Korea. So North Korea is increasingly integrating with the Chinese economy. If that happens, perhaps in the future the possibility of reunification might, go down, and possibility of integration between North Korea and China may, increase. Therefore, I think this is the high time for South Korea to increase its economic, interaction with North Korea. Of course, we should solve lots of political and security problems, but it is important to exchange, to have cultural, economic, and social exchanges between the two Koreas.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I think probably all of the panelists are in general agreement, but I think there may be some tactical differences. I think one of the major problems in dealing with North Korea for South Korea, for the United States, and I dare say for other parties as well, is the continuity of contact and dialogue. This has been a stop-start, sporadic kind of thing with like a little bit like Sisyphus, that we roll the stone up to the top and it comes rolling back down, sometimes on top of us, and we have to start all over again. So this is a particular relationship that needs a lot of attention to the architecture of diplomacy. There may be economic benefits prospectively and theoretically for all parties in engagement. It may be true that sanctions have proven to be a very poor tool for managing North Korea, or certainly to punish them for bad behavior. And I would certainly agree that getting into the syndrome of a binary relationship, rewards for good behavior and punishment for bad behavior on the part of North Korea, has just put us in a cyclical position. We're up, we're down. It's engagement, and then it breaks off. There are rewards and there are punishments. This is what I'm talking about when I say that the history of diplomacy over the last 20 years doesn't seem to have gotten the effect that we want. But still, there has to be diplomacy, and the diplomacy has to set up the engagement, the rapprochement that will allow for our economic interaction. Good economic reasons will not do it with North Korea. You have to get the right diplomatic fix. And that's why we are more or less obliged when we get into a period of stalemate in our own interest to continue to try to find creative, useful arrangements that we can use to reestablish diplomatic contact so that we can again get to a point where we can work on these issues. But with North Korea, I think that has to take priority. Even though there may be very good reasons for economic engagement, they will not carry the day without the diplomatic homework.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Su, anything you would like to add?
I think at least one consensus we may reach here today is that economic cooperation is the key factors in achieving peace in Northeast Asia or South Korea and North Korea's relationship. This is one point. Second point I want to say is China and South Korea will celebrate the 20th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relationship. I think suppose if China and South Korea didn't establish a diplomatic relationship 20 years ago, so maybe I think the Northeastern Asia's situation is quite serious. The recent statistics shows that China and South Korea's import and export trade size is up to $200 billion. So it's I think it's a huge progress in terms of economic cooperation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Francis.
Thank you very much. I would like just to make one observation. First of all, I would agree with many things my colleagues today said. I would like to mention one thing. Many of my Korean friends, old friends, they asked me a question. What should come first? Trust between South and North Korea or developing cooperation and contacts? My answer, based on the history of, for example, Soviet-American, Russian-American, Russian-Chinese relations, would tell that trust might appear only as a result of a certain process of contacts and cooperation. You cannot climb the tree from the top, right? You would start from the bottom, going up to the most difficult, most important subjects. And only in the process of this cooperation and contacts, some trust might reappear. But even in that case, I would advise to follow old Russian proverb, trust but verify. And this, in our history, we also have very good controlling mechanisms. Even if you don't trust completely your partner, you have some verification procedures, and you can check at every moment. Then real trust and confidence would appear. So I would be optimistic on that side. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I would like open the session to the questions from the floor. But unfortunately, due to time limit, we can take only one or two questions. Any questions from floor?
Mr. Kleitz, you've just come back from North Korea, and you mentioned briefly that the old apparatus seemed to be in charge. I wondered if you could elaborate on that.
I can, very briefly. I try to be very brief. As you probably know, I have the impression that the old guard is back in power, and you can see this when you look to the results of the elections of the delegates conference last year in September. The transformation of power in North Korea is set on the way by surrounding the young general. He's called the young general in North Korea, by people we have been knowing for many, many years. It's Jang Song-taek, it's Kim Jong-il's sister, it's old generals, and if you go deeper in the structure, you see that also on the level of the provinces, most of the governors were replaced. You also could say they were removed. What took place in North Korea is a restoration and a selection of people who are more loyal to the family. This is my impression after the delegates conference last year. I have one example. So I was in North Korea last week to Thursday, and obviously there is a inner circle who decides on everything. This might be the family, or nobody knows exactly what circle this is. But the officials to whom I talked last week in Pyongyang, they even did not, and they were high-ranking senior officials of the Central Committee of the party, they even did not know that Kim Jong-il was in China. We discussed this issue. Even the North Korean embassy in Beijing was only notified on a very short notice that Kim Jong-il is traveling to Beijing. So there is an inner circle who decides all these questions, who's in power and who is in charge, and I have the impression that they have everything under control. It would be a big mistake to think or to believe the young man is just somebody who will not be in charge. He's surrounded by people who take care that everything goes in a very smooth and correct way, and that there's no uprise, let's say uprise in North Korea. So everybody, it goes even deeper. Everybody who was somehow involved in illicit activities in North Korea was removed in the last 2 years. It's not only the leadership which was replaced, it's also on the second level, on the third level, on the local level, people were removed. The currency reform, and this is a very, very good example also. We were discussing about the currency reform, whether this was, why they wanted to have the currency reform. I also always discussed, let's say, 3 or 4 options because we were not sure. But my impression is that the currency, because I know the price